Why, hello everyone. Welcome to Redneck Ways. How's everybody doing out there in YouTube land? Hope you sit fine and dandy. Guys, we're in the model room tonight. We're going to be starting a new model, and it's going to be pretty cool, I think. It took me a minute to pick this one out, but here it is. I'm going to call it a 1974 Bronco, but it may be a 75. I know it's in the 70s there, but man, this is going to be a nice build. It's by Reveal. And see the side here. The top's going to be able to come off. Of course, we know that. I'd like how the back tire here. It's going to be able to hinge back. Underneath there, the four-wheel drive and everything looks good. I mean, I think it's going to be a really nice looking model. I think as far as now, I believe I'm going to paint it the same color as the box shows. We may change our mind later down the road, but right now I like that Ford blue. So let's get to it. Tonight, guys, going to be listening to some Art Bell in the background here, so we don't get too off board. We'll have something to listen to. So let me pick us out an episode, and we'll get started. Alright, guys, before we get going, let's go ahead and open this up. And before I start any Art Bell or anything playing in the background, we'll get it open and we'll take a look at what's inside. Get ready to say they got this thing taped. I think we got it going now. Alright. Alrighty, guys. Let's see what we got here. There's our glassware. There's the windows and stuff. Here's the body. Man, that's square, ain't it? And the top's in there also. Here's them rugged looking tires. Heck yeah, them are awesome. And here's the bag of parts. And here's the chrome. I love that grill. And then here's the instructions. Let's take a look at these, guys. Alright. Pretty nice book for the instructions. Here's the decals. See, it came with the white pinstriping and stuff, so that looks great. It's got Colorado plates. There's one, let's see, part name. It tells you every part name over here. I don't think I've ever saw a model with that rear shock wheel. So number 55 lower. Rear shock wheel. Then 42 front control arm. It's crazy. I've never saw it before in a model kit. It tells you every part on here. And I guess this is Spanish, maybe? Yeah, it's got it in Spanish, too. Wow. But here's number 1. So I guess that's where we'll start, guys. We'll find number 1 and start putting the motor together. I think it's got a B6 in it. I'm not sure. Alright, guys. It's 1994 Art Bell Ghost to Ghost. What we're going to be listening to.
Topic saved perhaps this weekend, this particular upcoming day, All Hallows Eve. It's very dark out there. There is no discernible moon, save the dimly illuminating stars. There's no light out there at all, and on this kind of night, of course, anything can happen. Now, when we do a ghost show, there are a couple of things I want to say before we get started. One, I treat the subject seriously, despite the opening laugh for you. I treat this subject seriously, ladies and gentlemen, for a lot of reasons. I've heard too many stories. I've done too many programs of this nature not to treat it seriously. As you may know, over the last year, I have been fortunate in receiving from a number of people photographs of what purport to be, and certainly seem to be, apparitions, ghosts. Something, surely it is something, and I cannot tell you for sure that I know that there are ghosts, nor that I even understand for certain there is an afterlife. I don't know. I'm continually searching, and I want to know, and I suspect
what paint, call it paint, guys.
Many of you out there, you want to know, and you're searching. And these stories, and this morning, may help you in your struggle with trying to understand whether there is really something to all this or not. So we take serious ghost stories. We don't joke. These are hopefully
I want to see what it looks like. It's dark.
And I guess that's what makes it all
gray.
The more frightening, the fact that they are at least given to us as
I don't think they painted.
Anyway, welcome to the weekend.
I don't think they painted the motors any special colors in
We'll get
this.
started shortly. A couple of
let's see what the maybe it'll tell in the instructions.
I've got a note for you. CBS Television this Sunday evening, no doubt when we're on the air with Dreamland, will be airing a special without warning program. It's kind of an H.G. Wells sort of thing with regard to the possibility of an asteroid hitting the Earth. I think it may be called Without Warning. It actually is in TV Guide, so I'm not giving away any secrets here. But you may want to run your VCR on that Sunday evening. And I believe it is called Without Warning, and it's going to be a realistic presentation with regard to the possibility of an asteroid hitting Earth or, being detected to shortly hit Earth. That'll be Sunday night, and I'm going to be rolling a tape on it, and I would suggest you do the same thing.
Okay, yeah, here's the paint guide.
One way or the other.
Alright, let's see.
A couple of stories
Saying this is B.
that I thought worthy of presentation to
Blue
simple
gloss.
little stories, really. Mr. Bell, my dad and I have been doing a paper
That's what it's going to
route
paint
for
the first, that
3
first
years.
bit.
We've been listening to your show for 2 now, and I feel this story might be good for
Blue
your
gloss,
show.
it says.
For a year and a half, we've been delivering newspapers to this house that has a large German shepherd that is kept on the enclosed porch where I put the paper. The dog had always been friendly, always waiting for a pat on the head. Well, about a month ago, I didn't see the dog for a while. Didn't think very much about it till he was on the porch.
Shake it up,
shake it up. After the last time I'd seen him, he was
I hope his
down.
paint's still good from last
When I
year.
entered, he raised his head, and I gave him several pats.
They won't come open. Gosh.
I didn't see him again after that. About a week later, we were collecting for the paper at that house. So I asked the owner where his dog was. He said the dog was very old, suffering from spinal problems. So he'd had to have him put to sleep.
It's still getting wet.
This instantly sent shivers up my spine. And now I get into and out of that porch as fast as I can. That's from Josh in Spokane, Washington. This comes from internet. Several years ago, I experienced a disturbing sight. I'm going to relate it as best I can. This gets all the dog stories out of the way. My wife, now ex, was lying in bed next to me. Light from the Circle K store next door was illuminating the room. I was laying there thinking about how good she looked in the yellow light when something black rose up out of her body. My first thought was, I thought I was awake. The blackness moved over me and formed itself into a black dog with glowing yellow eyes and dripping red, yes, the blood-glowed fangs. I screamed and held my arms over my head. My ex turned over and tried to comfort me. The neighbors pounded on the wall. The black dog took its time to dissipate. It seemed amused by my struggles while Brenda attempted to comfort me. The black dog has never reappeared, but I'll never forget it. Several sad events happened since that night. The most notable was the discovery that Brenda was cheating on me with an old high school flame. That's from Darkman in Seattle. Art, this story is not much, but it happened and I thought it was a little weird. When my wife and I were first married, in about a year or two, we purchased a brand new home in Northridge, California. One night around 10 o'clock, my wife and I went to bed. I left the bathroom light on. Now my wife had on a violet-colored night clothing. She was sleeping on my left side. I was not dreaming. I was still awake, just thinking about things. Looked over at the bathroom door. It was open. I saw what I thought was my wife standing in the doorway of the bathroom, and I said, "What are you doing up?" My wife said, "Huh?" The image at the bathroom door immediately vanished. My wife was still on the bed next to me. Weird. Wasn't a dream. The image I saw was so vivid and real, I actually thought it was my wife. As soon as my wife answered my question from her position on the bed, and the being in the doorway immediately disappeared, I told her what had happened. Now, any way you cut it, this was a strange event. I only conclude that there may have been something in the past that happened at that location before the housing tract was built there. The entire valley used to be nothing but horse ranches. Enjoy it. It's true. And then this. Art, I was an Eastern Orthodox priest for many years, and in that time I've witnessed many interesting, if not frightening, things. This is one that I'd like to tell you about. In 1974, a close friend of mine lost her father. He'd been very popular during the 40s as a singer and guitar player on the radio. He and his wife had been divorced for many years at the time of his death. He lived alone and died of a heart attack while sleeping in his bed. It was 3 days before his body was discovered. About a week after the funeral, his ex-wife moved back into the house that he'd lived and died in. 2 months after his death, I received a phone call from my friend asking if I could come over to her mother's house. Apparently her mother was beginning to act a little strange, and she was concerned. When I got there, the three of us sat down, and my friend's mother related this story to me. She said she was convinced she was going crazy. She said about 2 weeks earlier, she woke up in the middle of the night to the singing of her dead ex-husband. She walked into the front room, and he was sitting in the rocking chair smiling at her. She went back into the bedroom and spent the rest of the night with no sleep. She then told me after that she'd be sitting in the front room and for no reason it would feel like someone was grabbing or pinching her legs. After which welts would appear better. I took out a small bottle of holy
Alright, guys, we got that.
and proceeded to go through the house room by room, beginning with the basement.
We got that
Everything
done.
went fine. I saved the
Let's
bedroom
see, what's
for
next?
last. Upon entering the bedroom, there was a
Set that
noticeable
aside.
temperature difference.
Let me get this.
It was very cold, and you could see your breath. The mother stood in the doorway, and as I threw the holy water,
I don't know if we need that anymore or not.
was thrown
Let's see.
backwards out of the doorway into the hallway. When I asked her what was wrong,
Okay,
she
yeah,
said
we do. We
something
gotta
hit
find
her
the
in
valve
legs,
covers.
like something was trying
And the
to push
intake's
her
gonna be
out of the
blue
way.
also.
I was a little skeptical until she pulled her pants legs up. And there they were, large red welts on both legs.
I didn't have to
just
clean my
above the knee.
brush yet.
I'm not trying to make any claims as to what was going on in that house, but I can say that after I blessed the house, there was no further problem with visions or physical manifestations. Bit of a primer for you, and a couple of stories sent in. I have many, many more that have arrived by fax. If you have one,
We'll get it painted, and then we'll have to go back and detail it.
So my fax number is area code 702-727-8499. 702-727-8499. Now, this morning, that's all we're going to be doing is ghost stories. You're welcome to make a contribution. You're welcome to light a candle if you wish. And just sit there and get scared. And believe me, before this night is through, we will succeed in doing that. Probably will succeed in scaring myself. I've got my candle ready.
Okay, which one? Now the valve covers.
Just a brief warning. If these sorts of stories, and some of them are going to be realistic, and some of them are going to be frightening, if they scare you, by all means,
And the oil
I'm sure there's
thing
lots
is
of shows
blue.
this morning
It's all blue.
dispensing the usual.
Okay.
And many of you, I understand, would be far more comforted with the usual. So you'll want to tune out about now. Because coming up shortly, the unexpected, possibly the frightening. And I don't really want to scare anybody who's not ready for it. I simply tell you, you will hear stories that I think will convince you, if you continue to listen, that there is a life that comes after. And occasionally, things seem to interrupt the normal flow of the soul after death. Whether it's unrequited love, whether it's a murder, whether it's an unexpected, untimely death, occasionally things seem to interrupt the flow of what ought to come after this life, and those are the stories you will hear this morning. Or in just a very few moments. All right. Here are the telephone numbers. And remember this morning, nothing but ghost stories. If you have one for us, by all means, pick up the telephone. If you're a first-time caller to the program, the number is area code 702 727-1222.
The water pump is blue also.
702-727-1222. The wildcard direct lines, area code 702-727-1295. 702-727-1295. And then finally, if you're east of the Great Rocky Mountains, the number is 1-800-618-8255. 1-800-618-8255. And now, ladies and gentlemen, to the phones. On the wild card line, you are on the air. Good evening.
Good evening, Art.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm just fine. Do you have a ghost story?
Yes, I do.
Trying
My
to
name
see
is Alicia. I'm
if the
calling from
timing
Santa Maria.
cover,
Santa Maria, what is
timing
your
chain
story?
cover is blue.
Well,
I don't see it
we
in the.
purchased our house.
I don't see it in
We
the
could
instructions.
not move in initially because one lady died. Her name was Nellie. And for about 3-4, we've been in this house over 20 years now, mind you. And she lived here with us. And my husband...
Well, now, what do you mean? She lived with you as a ghost?
Yes, yes.
And now, how did you know she was there? Did you see her, hear her, feel her? How did you know?
I felt her.
You felt her.
And the room that she died in, which I am sitting in right now, was very, very cold always. Except that one day, my husband went down the hall, and he's not a believer, and she touched him, and he came back to me, and he says, somebody touched me, and I said, it was Nellie. Don't get excited.
Sorry,
And
guys, I
we
didn't mean to
used
bump
get
the
her
camera.
mail at this house for about 3 years. And every time that the mail came for her, we would lay it on the table, and I would say, Nellie, here's your mail. And it was for about 5 years she was in this house. And then she left. I just don't know how to explain.
It's saying the
it to
fan is
anyone.
blue also, but I'm gonna paint that a different color.
Thank you very much for the call. She left. In other words, you stopped sensing the presence. No, I understand that. You see, that really is typical. And usually the areas haunted, if you want to call it haunting, and it really doesn't matter, does it? The areas that are affected by the presence of what seems to be left of that human spirit are frequently the areas that that person was killed in, died in.
Alright, what
It's
we
really
need
hard to
now.
understand. Another aspect of it that I've never understood, one mentioned in a couple of the stories I read you and the one she just told you,
Need the
is the
in.
cooling of a room. I mean, just a downright chill, even to the degree that you can see your breath. It's not unusual to hear
Let's see.
that. I don't understand exactly
Black.
why it would be.
Black fat.
But it does
Flat
seem
black.
to trail with these stories.
Alright, I had to buy some new with that. I use a lot of flat black. I say if you put one of these together, if you are, you take a lot. It takes a lot of flat black.
Sleeping in this mobile home in a twin bed, and about 3 o'clock in the morning,
Shake and shake and shake.
I suddenly awakened, but my eyes were still closed, and I sensed kind of an energy down at my feet.
Down at your feet?
Yeah, down at my feet. It was
It's saying the headers
bizarre.
are
I didn't move. My eyes
Well,
were still closed. It was a kind
no,
of a positive
75.
feeling. I wasn't afraid of it. I felt this energy kind
Ah.
of moving, kind of up on the side of the bed.
iron metallic.
Up towards my head.
Okay. Iron
when it
metallic. So I need the
got
hoses.
right up to my, just about to where my arms were.
I don't know if I got the hoses up here.
Well, the first thing, wait. I thought for a minute, it was this
There,
whatever it was.
we gotta find the hoses,
warm
guys.
And good. And the first thing I said was, Mom, is that
Oh,
you?
I hit that. Dang on. I'm sorry,
And
guys.
then I didn't get a response. So then I opened my eyes, and there's this figure standing there, just looking at me. It was pink and blue.
Pink and blue.
Pinkish.
There's the hoses. Okay.
Just a pinkish illumination and blue.
All right, so it was not a solid form.
And not quite, well, it was shaped like a human and as tall as a human, but it wasn't quite solid. And I said the darndest thing, I said, can I help you?
People say the darndest thing.
Well, I wasn't afraid of it. I was looking at it wondering, what is it?
Can I help you?
Can
Okay.
I help you? And then it vanished.
And it
Slowly dissipated.
maybe it was shocked. I mean, maybe what you said at that moment just absolutely astounded it, even in spirit form, and it couldn't handle it.
But was I don't know.
Maybe it had been wandering the aisles of large discount stores now for months with nobody ever asking a question like that.
Oh my God! I remember calling my friend, and he just didn't believe me, and
Well, I believe you.
Good.
Thank you.
All right.
Take care. May I help you? All right, well, it is but the very beginning, and you have connected with the Halloween weekend show. The annual event on Coast to Coast AM. I'm Art Bell. Was that Coast to Coast, or was that Ghost to Ghost AM? Welcome, everybody. This is Halloween weekend, and we're telling ghost stories. If you have one, join us. If you don't have one, sit back, light a candle, turn the lights down, and prepare yourself. We're going to do a little commercial continuity here and get it done so we can go roaring through without interruption. And now, back to the lines. On the toll-free line, you're on the air. Hello.
Hello, Art. It's Anthony, Mr. Friday Night from St. Louis.
Well, welcome to the program.
I got a ghost story for you. It's not very scary, but it's worth telling.
All right.
Anyway, I never really knew my grandfather consciously, although Mom said I did love him. He died when I was 2 years old. That was 15 years ago.
You need a silver or gray.
And there was a time period after he died. Mom
for the
told
headers.
a story to me and a lot of other people where Mom was sitting there doing something, like just a couple months after he died, and he came back in full form, fully recognizable, just like he was in real life, just before he died. And he didn't say anything. He was just sitting there with a smile on his face, and the impression Mom got from
Here's silver. We'll try that.
Grandfather is that
I might change it. Sometimes this silver don't look right.
All right, so to speak.
No, that makes sense. And I'm sure the one thing that any spirit, thank you, anything or anybody who has left this earth would want to be able to tell or assure the people who are left. And that is that they're all right. That it is all right. That they're not gone forever. In fact, we're all not gone forever. What I do find interesting is that the apparition appeared in solid form. Not too many of them do. And the one, by the way, actually a couple that appear in our current newsletter are about to appear in the current newsletter. You've got to get hold of our newsletter, incidentally. Let me plug it while I'm at it. It's got the ghost photograph in it. And I may read you the letter that is connected to that ghost photograph. It is very good. A lot of people have had comments on it. The one taken by the Stone Mason. Thank goodness we managed to get it into the newsletter, and I hounded them to be able to do that, and so it is in there. If you'd like to order our newsletter called After Dark, the Art Bell newsletter, you can do so by picking up the telephone and calling right now, or throughout the weekend, I might add, 1-800-917-4278. Now, this is for people with Visa and MasterCharge and such. To get the newsletter, it's only $29.95 for a year. It's 1-800-917-4278. On the toll-free line, you're on the air. Good morning.
So it's Art Bell?
Yes, it is. Turn your radio off for us, please.
Okay. I have a story. Long time ago, when I was in my teens, I had a dream that I was walking down a road, and I looked to the left, and there was sheep and cattle and horses grazing, and it was beautiful pasture. And I kept walking on, a little further, and there was like a real beautiful old Civil War type looking house, you know, that type of an older house.
Sure.
And there was a lady outside pouring water into a bird bath, and she waved and smiled at me, and she's a very beautiful lady. And I waved and smiled and said hi back, and I kept walking down the road. There was a white picket fence. And as I walked down the road, the trees kind of made an arch. And as I walked through the arch of trees, not a perfect arch, but just kind of an arch, I woke up and I felt
The
pure
fan
pleasure.
belt
I just felt great.
is
And
C.
I got up, I smoked a quarter of a cigarette, and got a drink of water, went back to bed.
C.
And I was walking down,
Matt Black.
the same night. I'm dreaming, I'm walking down this road, I'm feeling very uncomfortable, and all of a sudden I notice, I look to the left, and there's that same sloping pasture, and I noticed a sheep first, in a long, tall, very unruly pasture. The sheep is laying there, you can see its body deteriorated, you can see the cattle on the horse is dead, and as I walked to what was a pretty picket fence, it was just unmaintained and paint peeling off it. And the house was in shambles, and I saw a man chasing a woman with a axe that looks like an axe on the back of a dime.
Yes.
And hit her in the head, and then she screams as he's hitting her. I didn't see her hit her, I just saw her chasing her through a open window without a screen. And then she comes back, and you could see her just kind of walking almost zombie-like, and she had the same axe in her hand with blood coming out of her head. And this was the same woman I saw before, only she was a little more aged, like she'd be 60 or so.
Yes.
And then you heard the guy scream, and you heard a thud, and I hurriedly walked down and started walking through these trees that were completely, at this time, they were like barren, almost like fall, but it was because of death, not fall.
Yes.
And I woke up, my heart was beating the whole 9 yards. Well, about 6 months later, my cousin and a friend of ours, we were driving along. We were out by the St. Louis airport. This is when it was very much undeveloped. And I felt a strange feeling. And I said, hey, pull into this driveway. The whole thing was a shambles. We pulled in, got out of his Jeep, and started walking up towards this so-called remnants of a house where there was like half of a brick chimney down, and the roof was like down on the ground.
Yes.
We all started getting bad vibes. And as we walked closer up to it, we noticed that the place in front of where that window was that I saw that axe being committed, there was like like the thorn tree they used to crucify Jesus Christ, the thorns they put around his head. And you could almost feel something surrounding us. And we never said a word to each other. We just looked at each other, and we slowly started walking towards the Jeep. All of a sudden, we found ourselves at a very fast pace towards the Jeep. Next thing we knew, we were in the Jeep, and it didn't want to fire up. My cousin threw it in a neutral. My buddy got out, kind of pushed it. We popped the clutch, it fired up. We left the place ASAP. And the thing of it was, when we got up to the Big Boys, and of course, Big Boys hamburgers aren't anymore,
Right.
we shut down the vehicle, and it fired right back up. And we never did return to the place, but it seems like that was a very strange situation.
It was, and possibly, what do you think your dream was then? Do you think that it was sort of a foretelling of what occurred there?
We've analyzed it over the years. I'll speak for my cousin and not Bob or myself. But my cousin is a very, 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 very high up in AT&T, and he's a very intelligent man, and we sat and talked about this. And one proposal we came up with years ago that had something to do with the one thing we could come up with, that the dream happened to me, but everything happened that way. The only thing we could come up with that we could all agree on that the maybe cause of it was what's going on in America economically today.
Economically today?
Yes, isn't that strange? It's something like that. And I have one more thing real quick.
Well, our current economic situation is a little like an axe in the head. Sir, we're very short on time, so if it's very quick.
Okay, when my dad died, my mom started going into she just started deteriorating physically and weight and bags under the eyes and black eyes. And I was down at a place that I was working, a buddy of mine owned, and I was standing there, and all of a sudden I felt his presence. And I said, Dad, don't take Mom, just go. She'll be with you later. The family needs her too much. And it was only about a couple days after that she started improving. That was a very strange thing as well.
Thank you very much for the call from, I believe, the St. Louis area.
All right, guys. I think that's about all the time we have tonight, guys. Got everything painted for the motor. Everything's good on that. So we'll let this set and dry. That way, when we go glue it, we will. When it gets all good and dry, we can put it all together next week, next Sunday. If you like this type of thing, I'm going to start making these videos every Sunday, working on our model, our Ford Bronco. So yeah, so let these dry, and I may pop in here earlier than next Sunday. Just depends on my work schedule and stuff. But I would like to just dedicate Sunday for our model build. Alrighty, guys. I hope you all have a great evening wherever you are. Bye, guys.